SAIKOROSHI, the worst option. This is a tale of Furude Rika reaching the summer of 1983. Her power allows her to choose one of many worlds. But is this world truly the best one for her? The difficulty here is malicious. For all you dear connoisseurs who prefer it that way. Bread rained down from the heavens. Some lamented it was not meat. Meat rained down from the heavens. Some lamented they preferred the bread. God descended down from the heavens. Until I know what will make all happy, water shall rain down. Frederica Berncastel. This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons or organizations is entirely coincidental. I'm so frustrated I want to cry. The cicada's chorus had been growing increasingly lively. The strange weather during that never-ending June had been hot enough to make us feel like summer had come early, but even so it was only June. Once we got closer to summer in July, the season graced us with even more summery weather. Today, to fulfill my dream, we all went to play at the swimming pool. The dream might have seemed humble at first, but I didn't have to look back on the hundreds of years' journey it took to achieve it anymore. Still, on a side, I shouldn't forget about it. For many people, this was a perfectly ordinary day, but for me, it had taken so many years of wandering just to get here, and that made me feel faint. And remembering it made this seemingly average regular life fill me with such profound happiness. Wow! Not bringing a camera today must be Sonozaki Neon's greatest failure.
I don't need a camera. I've burned this into my memory already. When I close my eyelids, I can still see how cute Keiichi looks.
Gah! Don't look at them! Don't! I'll follow your eyelots off your face!
This is what you forget for forgetting to bring your swimsuit to the pool, and the whole ruckus about you putting on those shitty swim trunks, too. From beginning to end, you reap what you sow. Keiichi, you should thank me. If she hadn't brought those swan underpants, your swan would have been swinging all over. Nippa!
Boy, was that a joy to behold. I didn't plan on anything specific for today, and just when I was thinking we'd play some nice quiet pool games. Well, with this group, it'd be a stranger if something didn't happen. No, that's definitely wrong. If you hadn't planned anything, you wouldn't have bothered to bring those embarrassing swan underpants here in the first place. You were scheming, looking for some excuse to get me to wear them, I'm sure of it.
But today was really fun, so I'm totally satisfied. I am. It certainly was fun. On that point, I quite agree.
Sako smiled at me, looking for my agreement, so I sent her back just as brilliant a smile, expressing just how much fun all that romping about today had been. They're talking about, I forget what arc it was, but it was in the anime, so you can watch it there, I guess, if you really want to. I believe it's Higurashi no naku Kuroni Rei. That's probably the anime, the OVA, or something, or maybe is it season 3, I don't know. It wasn't bad. I don't know. It was okay. As we all reminisced at our romp at the pool today, we got on our bikes and started on our way home. Hinamizawa didn't have any pools, so we just gone to a public pool in Okinomiya. There was an elevation difference between the two communities, and while going downhill had been very pleasant, we had a long trip upward on our way back. For Hinamizawa children at the zenith of their energy, it wasn't much of a chore, but we naturally fell silent as we quietly pedaled up the hill. Seeing everyone so silent made me want to screw things up somehow. Messing with Sadako at times like these was so much fun for me that you could call it the very purpose of my existence. I pedaled harder and caught up to Sadako's bicycle as she pedaled in silence and gave her a nudge in the shoulder.
Rika! Me.
After pretending to be mean to Sadako, I sped up. Of course she set up too and chased after me. Sadako struggled to somehow nudge me back, but I was no slouch either. Our speeds naturally increased, and we began to quickly pass the others in the group. What's this, a race? This old man won't lose either!
You shouldn't fool around the road.
This was a public road and cars sometimes came and went, but we lived here a long time, so we knew not many cars came around this hour.
Rika! A car is coming! Me! I won't fall for that trick!
So when Sadako said that, I thought she was just trying to distract me. A car horn. When I heard it, I realized Sadako's warning wasn't a trick, but it was so sudden that I was overtaken with surprise. When I looked in front of me, the car was right there. I panicked and violently swung my handlebars. My motion was more aggressive and sudden enough to throw me off balance. As my body lurched forward, I realized I was flying through the air. My nose caught whiff of the asphalt, telling me I was a moment away from being hurt.
Rika!
I heard Sadako shriek. No, the sensation I was experiencing was so unreal that I could only say I thought I heard her. I couldn't even figure out the sight of the car coming toward me as I hurled through the air was real, but the absence of reality probably only lasted about 1 second. I wasn't even given the time to say, oops. I heard the cries of the Higurashi in the distance. In those cries dwelt such cool tenderness that I wanted to listen forever. Eventually the silence was broken. The sound of many footsteps approached, pulling my mind back to reality. Suddenly the cries of the Higurashi were gone. The cries filling the room were that of cicadas. I thought I'd been hearing the Higurashi this whole time. Was that a dream? I was in a bed. I didn't recognize the ceiling. Where was I? The room was small, with an office desk and shelves full of medicine. I recognized the smell of that medicine, and the voices of children mixing with the cicada cries. I knew right away I was at school. I was in bed in the nurse's office. The door opened and Chie appeared. Behind her was Sadako and... my mind went blank. It was the face of someone who couldn't have been there.
Are you alright, Furude? Thank goodness. I was really worried. The doctor should be here soon. Please stay in bed until then. Thank goodness. I was really worried.
My mind was still blank. Dazed, I kept staring at his face as he spoke with words of concern. This person could not possibly be at school in 1983.
Satoshi. Are you okay? You still don't look very good. Stay in bed until the doctor gets here. That aside, Hojo Sadako! Where are you hiding?
She had raised her voice and turned her back toward the hallway before Sadako poked her face out, looking as though she was sulking.
I didn't throw it that hard. Furude is just exaggerating.
That isn't how you apologize. Say sorry to Furude. I sensed something a little strange about Sadako's tone and mood. In any case, judging by the situation, Sadako had done something to me, and as a result, I'd been carried to the nurse's office. That's how it looked to me. But didn't I pass out after falling off my bike on the way home from Okinomiya with everyone? Come here, Sadako! Chie called Sadako in a firm voice. Chie called Sadako Sadako before Satoshi went missing. The only time there were two people named Hojo was when Satoko and Satoshi were both here together. In other words, before June 1982. Then, was this the past? Was I repeating everything again? I felt a chill start to crawl through me. I'd gone through all that hardship to get past June of 1983, and now the world had rewound to the past again. The dead end of June 1983 that I challenged for over 100 years and finally broke through. Would I have to defeat it again? I certainly learned many things and defeated my fate with certain willpower, but I was also saved by a lot of luck. There's no proof I could challenge June 1983 again and defeat it like I did last time, which meant I was probably hit by that car in a bike accident and killed. And just before dying, I had rejected death and rewound the world. The way that unrealistic memory cut off was definitely similar to when I rewound the world previously. Then would I have to undertake a terribly long journey again? That can't be. The idea was infinitely terrifying. As it dawned upon me, I felt as though my vision was growing distant. I still hadn't fully understood how terrifying this just was yet.
Come, Sadako, you need to apologize. Furude, I'm sorry for throwing the ball at you. but you were just standing there and being in the way.
Sadako's apology was strange. It wasn't even an apology. Really, it literally sounded like an excuse. She looked at Chie and Satoshi, wondering if that was enough. It didn't seem like Sadako had any intention of apologizing for throwing the ball at me. Because Sadako wasn't even looking at me, not really. It was like I didn't belong in her world. She'd never treated me this coldly before, and before anything else, she's talking strangely. It didn't seem like the situation that had befallen me was a rewind to so far in the past that Satoshi was still around. Something else had happened. Something bizarre that I didn't understand. That's how I felt as I listened to the odd way Sadako was talking. She sounded far more normal than the Sadako I knew. Sadako made a face like reading out a standard written apology was enough, and ran off into the hallway. I checked the clock. It was right in the middle of afternoon break. She's probably rushing back to the schoolyard because she didn't want to miss any more playtime. As she turned her back on me, I ran away. I suddenly felt very cold and sad. If the Sadako I knew had hurt me enough to put me in the nurse's office, she would have stayed with me the entire time. Her footsteps vanished before she even looked at me once. It didn't seem like she hated me. It felt like she wasn't even interested. What was happening? What year and what month was it right now anyway? Hanyu was nowhere to be found. Despite wanting to know no calendar or anything like one was nearby, so it didn't seem like I could find out right now. Most normal people would give you a strange look if you asked what year and month were. I had learned from my long journey that I had to be careful about that. Instead, I decided to push that question aside for the moment. Sorry, Rika. I'll make sure to talk to Sadako later. I'm sure she asked you to play with her because you seem lonely.
Me, thanks. I'm not worried about it anymore, so it's okay.
As Sadako's older brother Satoshi apologized in her stead. He seemed no different from the Satoshi I knew.
Alright, I'm going to get going then. Thank you, Satoshi. Anytime.
Satoshi gave a little wave of his hand and turned and left the nurse's office. A new set of footsteps approached in his place. From their pace and sound, it wasn't a child. It was probably Coach. She had called for him.
Doctor, I'm sorry to call you out so suddenly. She just woke up a few minutes ago.
Is that right? That's good, that's good. It was a throaty voice. It wasn't Irie? The man who suddenly appeared was one I'd never seen in the clinic or even at the Irie Institute. He was a large man with round curves, the exact opposite of Irie. The stubble on his face made him seem rugged. He was so distinct I couldn't even forget him even if I only met him once, and yet I had no recollection of him. But he was wearing a white robe. She had called him the doctor from the clinic. He must have been a doctor from the Irie clinic, but I'd never met him before. Hey, Rika! You sure went through a lot. The ball hit you in the back of the head? Would you mind if I took a look?
Me?
Without waiting for an answer, the mountaineerish doctor fell around the back of my head. His fingers were uncultured, completely different from Irie's delicate hands. Could you show me your eyes? Yep, you seem alright. Have a headache or anything? Any nausea or dizziness?
No.
I think you're probably fine then. Just be sure we'll take you to the clinic and look at your brainwaves. Still, as far as I can see, there's no problem at all. The doctor laughed uproariously, spraying spittle everywhere. Jay gave a look of relief too, as if it was a sign there were no problems.
I see. Then just to be safe, I'll leave her in your care. Frude, please go to the doctor's clinic.
Indeed! You'll be in and out before the afternoon hours begin. Let's go! The big doctor, acting too familiar for my taste, pushed me out the door, and before I could fight my feeling of wrongness, I was taken out of the nurse's office. What was this world? Sometimes the dice came up with strange numbers and caused little differences, but this is the first world that felt wrong to me. The dice rolls turned up something rare. After repeating this world for over 100 years, I thought I'd figured out pretty much every event, and yet this all felt so strange to me. There was something immeasurable about how strange it was. I couldn't help but feel intensely anxious. I put my shoes on the entrance before being taken to the parked car in front of the school gate. All the while I stared at the big man's back as he walked, racking my brains trying to remember him, but I couldn't come up with anything. No matter how much I thought back, I couldn't recall any man like this in the Mountain Dogs, much less the Irie Institute. If Satoshi were here, it meant it had to be before June 1982. Hanyu would always be here as soon as I woke up, and she'd tell me what would go on in that world. But in this world, I haven't seen Hanyu even once. The radiant sunlight, the annoying cicada cries, the lively voices of my classmates. I knew them all so well, but something was different. It almost made me sick. Hanyu, where am I? What kind of world is this? Hanyu didn't answer me. Fine then. If I went home and opened a bottle of wine, she'd be sure to come rushing in. Not once has she ever allowed me a few elegant minutes to myself.
Mi-chan! Mi-chan! Take this!
Ha! Too slow! The most important rule of dodgeball is to go over the weaklings. Aiming for me was a tactical mistake, and the next slowest one is you!
Ah! Ah!
I saw several classmates playing a game of dodgeball. Mion and Rena were there in a crowd. Rena. Any world where Rena was present was later than April 1982, as Satoshi disappeared from the village in June 1982. The only time Rena and Satoshi could be here at the same time was a short span from April to June of 1982. It didn't seem like I'd gone as far into the past as I'd feared, but I still had to repeat the June of 1983 that hadn't changed. Did I have to complete those long, difficult days of nothing but strife yet again? Teaming up with my friends, trusting each other, grappling with our suspicions of each other, believing in miracles and fighting alongside everyone, and all the coincidences in the world to help save us. If we missed any of those elements of this process, this world would end in horrific tragedy. I'd gone past this dead end before. This is the second time, so I understood a little how to fight against Takano's group. So I probably wouldn't have to spend another whole 100 years. Even still, it would definitely take several of those years, if not dozens. But I never wanted to spend another day in that June of 1983 ever again. The despair I felt reaching the goal once, then getting kicked back to the start. I got into the man's car, and as it bumped over in the rough roads, I sorted out the situation I was in. That day in July 1983. I went to have a good time at the pool with everyone, and on the way home there was an accident, and I died. And right before dying, I used the power I never thought I'd have to use again to turn back time once more. This world was probably June of 1982. It was considerably hot, so the Watanagashi festival couldn't be far off. That meant the countdown to Satoshi's disappearance had already begun. Earlier in the nurse's office, he'd given me kind and considerate words, but an unyielding darkness would have started to take control of his heart, his fear of inescapable terminal illness's footsteps. I thought back to how the Hojo siblings had looked in the nurse's office, and to Sadako and Satoshi's everyday sibling relationship. It ceased to be an everyday thing in just an ordinary few days or weeks. Sadako's somewhat cold treatment of me had hurt, but when I remembered that, I felt pity for her. Sadako. For now, at least, treasure that time. Your relationship with Satoshi is limited. That cruel fact hadn't been overruled a single time in any of these hundreds of years of worlds. In other words, it was inevitable. I could only sympathize with the fate awaiting Sadako now. Eventually, the Irie clinic came into view. Every time I saw it, I was struck by its magnificence. It was almost too much for Hinamizawa, but this time the clinic building felt a little dull, as though affected by the sadness coloring my heart. The car came into a stop, the employee parking near the lot, near the back entrance. Can you walk? Are you feeling well?
Me, I'm perfectly fine. I don't think I need a brain scan.
Head injuries are scary because some take a while to do anything. We'll play it safe and get you scanned. If it's nothing, you can go back to the afternoon class. This is the first time I met the strange doctor, but he didn't seem unreliable. Maybe the cloudiness in my expression made me look like I was worried my injury was serious. That's why he tried to cheer me up. His attempt at encouragement was off base, but for now, I told myself he wasn't a bad person at least. The air inside the clinic smelled unfamiliar to me. Indeed, it was the same clinic as I once knew, but something was different. On the whole, it felt old, like I'd find cobwebs if I looked. I recognized none of the nurses as we passed. The only people I knew were the elderly villagers chatting as they watched TV in the waiting room. Oh, is that you, Rika? What happened? Do you have a cold? Notice how they call her just Chan and not Chama.
Someone during recess threw a ball and it hit the back of her head.
Oh wait, oops. Someone during recess threw a ball and hit the back of her head. Figure we should do a scan to make sure. Head injuries can be scary, but you're young, so I'm sure 1 or 2 balls to the head is nothing. The old people laughed aloud as though rubbing some spit on the bump would fix it. Something about their behavior was strange too. The people I knew would get out of their beads, start praying, and make a fuss just because I got a bump on the head. Maybe they'd say 1 or 2 balls is fine because you're young if I were a normal child, but for me, in particular in Hinamizawa, that was impossible. This all seemed very wrong. Something huge, something I couldn't ignore was different about this world. Rika! Come in, come in! After the large man went straight into the examination room, he called me in. The Queen Carrier had come for an examination. The next logical step was that Irie, the director, would appear, but he hadn't appeared yet. The discomfort I'd been feeling this whole time got even stronger, and then I spotted something odd. It was a notice from the hospital hung in the waiting room. Please be sure to bring your insurance card on your first checkup of the month. Takano Clinic. Takano Clinic? I looked around the other notices hung about the waiting room. All of them had Takano Clinic written at the end. Not a single one said Irie Clinic. Where am I? Rika, come on in! We're burning daylight! I heard the man's deep voice from the examination room again. I ignored him and burst out of the front entrance. Why? Because I wanted to know. To know the name of this clinic. Takano Clinic. Takano. See, you can see that. It looked exactly like the Irie Clinic I knew. But there was the answer to why everything was so out of place. This is in katakana, so yeah. Where is this? I could feel the strength drain from my body. My legs gave out and I sat, and for a while I stared dumbly at this name that was inexplicably different. I'm not sure how long I stayed like that. Eventually the big doctor from before and a nurse came running out. They asked me if I suddenly felt sick, and if I didn't answer, they would annoyingly get even more concerned. So somewhat offhandedly, I lied and said I felt a little dizzy for a moment. But they must have thought the vertigo pointed out a symptom of something. They picked me up and brought me to the examination room and hooked me up to the EEG terminal and told me to rest.
Me, it's really nothing. I thought this would be annoying, so I tried to run away and then I tripped and fell.
It's the doctor's job to decide if it's nothing. Please lay down until I say it's okay, understand? I felt like the more I tried to say, the more complicated things would get, so for now, I decided to play along so I could get out of here.
Doctor, is there a doctor named Irie here?
What? Who did you say?
Irie.
Irie? Is that your family doctor, Rika? What hospital does he work at? We're getting nowhere. Is Irie not in this world? Compared to everything the other adults like Akasaka and Kasai did in the long battle of June 19th, Irie's presence might have seemed to matter little, but it's extremely important that he was around. Without his determination to sever the chain of sadness created by Hinamizawa syndrome, this was essentially no way for Hinamizawa to break free of its 1,000-year curse. And Irie wasn't here. Plus Irie was my only ally, who I knew I was the Queen Carrier. That ally was gone. The strange way Sadako was talking, the absence from my only ally from Tokyo, Irie. No doubt some unpleasant die had landed on a one. And despite my ally Irie not being here, was Takano still behind everything? When you get one bad roll, you get a bunch more. Dr. Takano passed away quite a long ago. The name comes from that splendid doctor who built such a wonderful clinic in this village. Someone I never had the chance to meet, but a splendid doctor if there ever was one, I hear.
Splendid doctor?
Would the occult-obsessed Takano ever be praised as a splendid doctor, as she passed away a while ago? When I looked around the examination room, I found a picture of some old people hanging in a frame. On it was written, Founder and First Director, Takano Hifumi. Takano Hifumi. Wasn't that the man Takano looked up to, who she called her grandfather? He was the first one to discover the Hinamizawa syndrome, but nobody accepted his theories about it, and he passed away in despair. Takano had understood his chagrin and eventually made a big decision that began to build a future so stable you could call it fate. That Takano?
Another person named Takano? Not the founder?
Wait. Another person named Takano, not the founder. I can't say I know them. None of the nurses are named that anyway. Maybe it was an old nurse who retired before I got here.
I don't think so. She's a young woman.
There's nobody here by that name. If there was a nurse like that, I definitely want her to work here. The man guffawed with delight. He certainly didn't look like he was lying. He was speaking the truth. Then even Takano is gone. Erie was absent. Takano was absent. The Erie Institute didn't have its director or vice director. What did that all mean? Who was the director then? Oh, and what about the mountain dogs? The Erie Institute was, at its heart, a research institution. Without them acting as its hands and feet, it couldn't exist.
Is there a landscaping company here called Okanogi Gardeners?
Huh? Landscapers? Couldn't tell ya. Never had to call one of them myself. Wouldn't really know. Where are they from?
I thought they had an office in Okinomiya.
Why are they saying Okono? It's Okino. What is with this consistent typo? Why not look them up in the phone book later? Individual people sometimes don't show up in there. I think most companies should be there. Could the Erie Institute not exist in this world? Would that mean this world didn't have a dead end at all? I couldn't figure anything out. Which dice were showing 1s and which ones were showing 6? Or was the stranger part the dots on the dice themselves? The game board I knew I was a piece on now, and the game board I knew, were they different? Let's be a little more optimistic. Was it possible that Tokyo hadn't chosen Irie, but this man instead? Then this man would know I was the Queen Carrier. If he did, then a number of things would fall into place. The prudence of giving me the brain scan after getting knocked over by the ball to the end. Wasn't that because he knew I was special and I was the Queen Carrier? Then, was this man playing the role of Irie in this role? I looked at the name tag on the robe he put on after coming into the room and read the name.
Yamamoto.
Yes? It was a natural response. It seemed the name Yamamoto wasn't a problem. Was this Yamamoto person the director of the Erie Institute, or rather the Yamamoto Institute? It's also possible he crowned this clinic with the Takano name in commemoration of him, succeeding Takano Hifumi's research.
Yamamoto, do you know what Hinamizawa syndrome is?
The Hinamizawa what?
Do you know about me being the Queen Carrier or anything?
Queen? Riga, you seem to like me. You seem to me like you're still a princess. You want to believe you're queen when you grow up? You dream big. Okay, there we go. You can take it off now. I learned from what short exchange that Yamamoto had nothing to do with the Hinamizawa syndrome. There are a few people unconnected to Tokyo and the Erie Institute too, but there were only a small handful of nurses and office workers, and besides, the Queen Carrier was currently in the clinic. Anyone connected to the Hinamizawa syndrome would have come rushing to me. Yamamoto had rushed to me, but he didn't know I was the Queen Carrier. What did that mean? I listened hard to try to catch the sound of Erie's indiscreet laughter, but all I heard was the TV in the waiting room and the motor of the goldfish aquarium. That maid-obsessed man with his ulterior motives during checkups was nowhere to be seen in the examination room. It was simply uncomfortable, and the smells and dust of medicine made me feel unpleasant. Now I knew. This really wasn't the clinic I knew. It wasn't a strange feeling anymore. It was a clear fact now. Yamamoto left for a moment and came back and told me there was nothing wrong with my readings. If you feel alright, you can go back to school now. Afternoon classes start soon, so I can take you there if you need a ride. You can go to school yourself?
Me.
Me isn't yes or no. Which will it be?
Yes, I'm fine. I can go back to school myself.
I see, then get going. I'll call Chi and tell her you're coming back.
Oh.
When I saw Yamamoto pick up the phone on the table, I spotted a tabletop calendar next to it. June Showa 1958. Oh wait, 58, sorry. Showa 58. Was that an AD again? The Pacific War ended in Showa 20, which was 1945. 58 minus 20. I'm bad at borrowing, luckily, but I don't need it. I messed up, sorry. I'm sorry, I messed up. I read that wrong. 38? Yes, 38 minus 20 is definitely 58. Then if you add 38 to 1945, 45 plus 38 is 83. Oh yeah, 1983. It's 1983, June. Wasn't that the same period of time I'd just been living in? But, that's impossible. In 1983, Satoshi is here? And Irie isn't here. Takano isn't here. Sadako's acting strangely, and even Hanyu is gone. Where am I? Hanyu, I know you're wasting time somewhere. Get over here with your ow-ows and tell me what kind of world this is. Okay, I have to tell it. What is with the thing? Like, the translation or whatever. There's so many errors. You think sometimes they make updates, they fix some of the typos. How do you consistently misspell Okinomiya as Okonomiya? I'm sorry, I have to call that out. Okay, sorry, that's incompetent. I'm sorry I have to be rude. I mean, it is a manga gamer, and I don't like their sprites. So, whatever. I'm sorry, I have to be petty. I'm a petty bitch, alright? I walked through downtown on my way back to school. All the storefronts were familiar, nothing had changed. But for some reason, there were less people and more stores with their shutters closed. This apparent state of decline reminded me of New Year's or New Year's Eve. It was a strange sight during the season where you could hear cicadas crying. I barely passed anyone, and even when old people walked by, they didn't talk to me. Normally, if I met an old person in the middle of the day like this, they'd ask if I had a cold and was staying home from school, or they'd start rubbing their prayer beads and saying weird things. There was none of that. Just like the old people in the clinic, they reacted with disinterest. I wasn't in the mood for it anyway, so I was thankful they didn't do any of that. But there was already a heap of oddities before me, and I couldn't help but feel like it was growing even bigger. Afternoon break was long over by the time I got back to school, and it was now time for afternoon classes. I went through the entrance and changed into my slippers. I noticed another strange thing. There were a lot of empty shoe cubbies. Empty was different from absent. Anyone enrolled here would leave their slippers or regular footwear in their locker no matter what. If neither were present, that meant they were in this class to begin with. Sometimes people took their slippers from home to wash during the weekends, but any lockers being empty during the day was unthinkable. I continued. A little over 10 pairs of shoes. That was only half of how many people were in the school I knew. Everything was so messed up I was no idea what was going on. I steeled myself and opened the classroom door. Everyone turned around to look at me. There were truly only half of the familiar classmates here, and they weren't absent, because only half as many seats were actually in the classroom.
Furude, please take your seat. All right, everyone. This is class time, so focus on your drills.
Cherry clapped her hands, and everyone looked back around their desks, workbooks, ignoring me altogether. My seat. Satoshi was sitting at the desk next to Sadako. That didn't seem to be my seat. Then where was it? Soon I found an open seat looking small and quiet in the back near the window. I could tell from the pattern of the floor cushion with my disaster hood on it. It seemed to be Furude Rika's seat in this world. It was in the corner as though the classroom had forgotten about it. There were no seats next to it, and nobody would see it when looking at the blackboard. In a place where I couldn't block anyone's view, whether or not I wasn't here. That seat was almost symbolic of how I'd been feeling ever since I awoke. I sat down and took out my workbook, and then pretended to study. I looked around the classroom. Sonozaki Mian was here. She didn't seem very different. Ryugu Rena was here too. The way she was helping the child in the seat next over with his work was very like her. Sadako and Satoshi were studying together as friendly siblings. Satoshi, being the older brother, was teaching her things. Sadako looked disgruntled, and his words went one ear and out the other. To me, it was almost as if she didn't hate studying. She just didn't like their roles being reversed and she looked after him at home, and it made me smile a little. I still felt a tiny pain in my chest from Sadako's cold treatment of me during the nurse's office, but as far as I could tell by looking at her individually, she seemed totally normal. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong here. When Sadako was with Satoshi, she was often gloomy because of the problems at home or their aunt's abuse, so they were acting like normal siblings, and though I knew it was rude to Sadako, that felt wrong. If Sadako had a normal life, that was fine. The bigger shock, though, was the absence of the most important person in our group of friends. I looked around the room several times for him, but he wasn't here. Maibara Keiichi wasn't here. I made multiple excuses like I wasn't seeing right, or he happened to be absent today, but even the list of students on cleaning duty hanging on the wall didn't have Keiichi's name on it. Everyone in classes had their names on there, but Keiichi's wasn't. Maibara Keiichi did not exist in this classroom, even though it was June of 1983 in this world. I see. On rare occasions, there'd be a world where Keiichi hadn't moved here. It wasn't the first time, but it was a sad thing. Keiichi was an important key to crushing the fate of June 1983. If he wasn't on the game board, this game was predetermined to be a loss. But was this even a game at all? No Irie, no Takano, no signs of the Institute from Tokyo researching Hinamizawa syndrome. If none of them were here, didn't that mean there was nobody at all to fight? If I didn't need to fight, then, in a sense, Keiichi's absence wasn't an issue. Actually, in this case, June 1983 wasn't fated to be a dead end, and, in other words, in this world, the 1,000 dice all turned up ones that changed the absolute fate Takano had constructed with her certain willpower into something else. I had no idea what was what. Could this world even be explained by the dots that came up on the dice? Where am I? Someone tell me. Obviously unable to focus during class, my head was filled with the listless cries of the cicadas, the feeling of being out of place I couldn't get rid of. Everybody stand up! Bow! Goodbye! Thankfully, Mia was still the class president. For some reason, that was a relief. Oh, was there even a club in this world? If I could receive the baptism of those crazy club games, maybe that would clear up my feelings a little. On days we had a club, she'd always call all the members right when the school ended. Except I stayed in my seat as everyone ran into the hallway. Sadako was one of those who dashed out. She was flying headlong toward the entrance, jostling the other kids her age. Satoshi leapt too, falling behind her. Miyun and Rena talked to each other as they got ready to leave. As far as it looked, we didn't have club. The club was annoying at times, but I yearned for it so much now. Was there no club in this world? As I started to feel lonely, I saw a grin spread across Miyun's face before she and Rena approached me. Normally that grin would look gross, but when Miyun did it, it didn't feel bad. Our eyes met. Thank goodness. Even this world had the after-school club it was supposed to. Hey, Rika! I got a moment before you go home?
Me, is it club?
For the first time since coming to this world, I smiled. I had no idea what was going on in this world, so having one of my hopes come true made me happy for the moment. No, not that! You're on duty tomorrow, right? Here's the logbook. And club? Huh? Wouldn't you want to be in my club too, Rika?
Me.
I gleaned two things from Mion's few words. One, that I still wasn't a club member. The other was that, even so, the club still existed. For me right now, that was an incredibly happy thought. Then, Fruity Rika, I hereby grant you permission to join my club.
Mi-chan, you're being weird.
Rena laughed like it was a funny joke, but why? But even if you're in the same club, you still can't do club things with us.
Well, why not?
I mean, your house and my house are in opposite directions, right?
Me?
When Mio said her club, she probably meant the club of not having the club, the going home club. She must have been saying that we went home in different directions, which is why I couldn't do club activities going home together with her. In other words, the club doesn't exist in this world either.
Mi-chan, can't we have club activities with Rika once in a while?
But we go in opposite directions.
Maybe it's okay from time to time, maybe.
After I realized I had to go home all alone, Rena said she'd leave school with me. That kind of consideration was just like the Rena I knew so well. We didn't have club, but Mion and Rena were still Mion and Rena. Sorry, but I'll have to pass. I gotta get back real quick for my job at my uncle's place.
Oh, then Rika and I will have our after-school going-home club. Thank you, Rena.
Mm-hmm. The three of us headed for the entrance. Our outdoor shoes were the only ones left.
There are less slippers here than I remember.
Yes, I decided to naturally mention it. Rena responded right away.
It's lonely, but what can we do?
As they say, you gotta look for a nice big tree when you seek shelter. Anyway, sorry about this, but I gotta get going. I'll leave Rika's escort to you, Reina.
Okay. Reina? Yes? What is it? Nothing.
Rena was the kind Rena I knew, but her name wasn't Rena. Reina. That was Rena's real name, but in the worlds I knew, she'd thrown it aside, which meant she hadn't given up being Reina? Or her path leading to today was different from the ones in the worlds I knew. I knew Rena hated herself because she considered herself responsible for her mother's divorce, and as she messed up both her life and herself, she'd have to decide to part ways with that old self and start over and rename herself Rena. But that didn't happen? That wasn't the only thing I learned from this conversation either, regarding the number of people in this class. When I mentioned there wasn't many people, they acted like there was a reason. I mean, the current number of students in this world hadn't been that way from the start. It had decreased to this number. Mio ran off and Rena and I left school together. When we went across the schoolyard, I saw Sadako fooling around playing tag.
Are you looking at Sadako? Me.
Her name was different, but she still picked up on these things quickly.
I'm sure Sadako wasn't trying to be mean when she hit you with the ball. Forgive her, okay? I don't really mind.
Reina seemed to be trying to smooth it over. It kind of sounded like Sadako and I weren't normally friendly with one another. So I asked,
Are Sadako and I not friends? Of course you are! You're both in the same class!
The way she said it was enough of an answer. Now I knew why Sadako acted so coldly to me in the nurse's office. In this world, Sadako and I weren't friends. Maybe that made sense. After all, if Satoshi was alive and well, then Sadako would spend all her time with him. The reason Sadako and I got to the point we could call close was because Sadako ended up all alone. I asked her to stay at my house, and we ended up living together. Of course, we were friends before that, too. Just nowhere near close as we were here in 1983. Maybe in the end our relationship was nothing more than me sitting in Satoshi's empty seat. When I thought about that, I considered what happened if Satoshi was around in June 1983. Maybe this was his most natural future. With regretful eyes, I watched as Sadako frolicked about. Sadako looked like she was having a lot of fun with her other classmates. She would never notice me going home from school. I'm going to stop thinking about it so much. Before the true world I need to reach, this world was all but a defective one. I don't need to bother trying to understand a broken world.
There's a lot less stores open, too.
When we went through the downtown with all of its stores and their shutters down, Reina spoke up. I didn't care about this world anymore. But as a classmate going home with her, I answered unconsciously.
I wonder why so many closed up. Well, it only makes sense. They can only do business until next year anyway. They're getting less and less customers, too. It's not strange that someone would want to close up shop early. Why don't they do business after next year? They can't. They're getting evicted. Evicted. It sucks, but there's nothing we can do. And even if this village sinks, it won't destroy our souls, the ones that belong here.
I gave a start when I heard that. That couldn't... No. It was possible. In every single world, the story of Hinamizawa being submerged under the artificial lake was always present, but the Irie Institute working from the shadows would make sure that dam project was cancelled. If there was no Irie Institute around to make them cancel it, that meant the dam project was proceeding as planned and...
Then the dam will... I heard they decided to flood this area next year. I think it'll take quite a few days to submerge, but I don't really want to watch. Maybe after it's all late, but watching it go under would be sad. Wasn't anyone opposed to it? At first there were, but we can't be selfish when it comes to helping the nation grow. I don't really understand, but apparently the government people were really nice and talked to us a lot about it.
The dam conflict I was hearing from Reina wasn't even a conflict in this world. Everything regarding the dam was completely different from the worlds I knew. They proposed the Hinamizawa Dam project, which is the same as the worlds I knew. Relations between the nation, who wanted to evict us, and the residents who refused gradually worsened and eventually broke down. It snowballed into a dire conflict over the dam, but in this world, it had been different from the very beginning. First off, relations between the country and the village were stormy at the very, very beginning, but apparently that was resolved quickly. The Sonozaki and Kimiyoshi families negotiated on the village's behalf. They accepted the eviction on the promise of a large sum of compensation money. After that, the conversation was between the three families and the villagers. Nobody wanted to part with the soil of their ancestors, but the villagers, who certainly couldn't be called wealthy, the money which the nation could provide was no trivial matter. They worried over it to no end. Rumors flew about, wondering if Oyashiro's curse would befall them if they abandoned these lands. But the Furude family head, my father, in other words, declared we couldn't be cursed if we built Oyashiro a new shrine somewhere else, and remembered to honor him. Despite many objections, the elderly agreed on a cooling-off period for several years. In addition to the compensation money, they demanded from the government the movement of the Furude shrine in the graveyard, its symbolic trees, in addition to the guarantee of a new place they would call Hinamizawa. If those requests were fulfilled, they would consider agreeing to the eviction. The nation consented to this. They proposed provincial occupation rights of a reclaimed public housing in Shishibone. With regards to giving the town a new name, they considered the residents' proposal as most important, as they consented to the movement of the shrine, graveyard, and other locations as well. In conclusion, though, there were several years of turmoil. The dam conflict never happened in this world, and everything was resolved through talking alone. The villagers actually agreed to the dam project. Actual construction of the dam had begun a few years ago. Apparently, construction vehicles were a constant source of traffic on the village's water roads. The eviction deadline was set at the end of April next year, so more than a few families had begun moving out in advance. One shop's shutter had been worn paper notice on it. It was written our deepest gratitude for our many years of patronage. I spotted other notices opposed to the dam on them, but those had deteriorated over time. A silent indication the dam war was a thing of the past now.
I don't think that all the kids in class are moving into the public housing. Sadako's family is supposedly moving somewhere else. It's a little lonely to think we won't be able to see all of our friends' faces after next year. Me.
The village I was born and grew up being in submerged was very sad. All my classmates enjoying this day to the fullest, even though they knew that seemed so strong to me. And if the dam war never took place, that would cause several other effects. For example, the relationship between the Sonozaki and the Hojo families. At the beginning of the dam conflict, the Hojo declared themselves in favor of the dam, with the Sonozakis in opposition. The former ended up a scapegoat of the village for a long time. But that trouble never occurred in this world.
Sadako's family? I don't know, I think they're normal. I don't think they have much particularly in common with Mi-chan's family. Does Sadako get along with her family? Oh, you mean her father?
Even the dam conflict, the presence of the stepfather would be a burden on Sadako's mind. With the level 5 symptoms appearing, she would push him from the viewing platform in the park, and be given into the care of her malicious aunt and uncle, because her stepfather's presence would be the very gateway to Sadako's later unfortunate fate.
When I think about it now, maybe their awkwardness with each other at first made it for a good memory. They aren't connected by blood, so they tried hard to be father and daughter, and maybe now they have a stronger bond than she would with her biological parents. I've talked to them a bunch of times, but he's a good person that works hard to support his family. You mean Sadako's current father? Yep!
Which meant in this world none of the dice threatening Sadako had come up on a 1. For Sadako, did that make this world a happy place for her? My walk with Reina was very significant for me understanding this world. I found out this world's composition betrayed every last bit of my common sense. The reason Reina wasn't Rena, that was different from the very start. First, the Ryugu family didn't move to Ibaraki. They lived in Hinamizawa this entire time. Her mother was still working as a designer in a small company in the city. Her father had switched careers and now he's a salesman for his wife's designs. The couple must have been in good terms to design things together and sell them. As always, her mother's position seemed to be stronger, but the relationship was an average one, and divorce at least seemed impossible. That meant a nice peaceful family for Reina. That satisfied her fully. She even said that she lived a happy life. The fact that she knew that without going through hardships, though. She really was still Rena. I asked about the Takano clinic too. It was as big as Dr. Yamamoto had said. The Takano clinic was indeed one who had been Takanomiya's adopted grandfather, Takano Hifumi. Right after the war, he built a surprisingly grand clinic in Hinamizawa, which had no doctors, and became a celebrity to the villagers. I learned there was a monument dedicated to Takano in place of the one dedicated to Irie in the worlds I knew. After Takano's passing, there was nobody to succeed his place in the clinic. For a long time, it had been left empty. That was when a man from Okinomiya named Yamamoto arrived and breathed new life into the clinic. Takano had discovered the Hinamizawa syndrome in the search for the research sponsors but found none. Eventually, Takanomiya would succeed him. But what if the older Takano had found a sponsor? Neither Takanomiya nor Irie would appear, and the Takano clinic, being built right after the war, would make sense, which meant Takano in this world had been blessed with good dice rolls. At this point, I had a vague idea about something. Weren't these dice rolls the exact opposite of the ones for the world I knew well? The people themselves hadn't changed at all, but the dice God had cast for these people were all reversed. So it made sense it turned into such a strange world for me. I learned one more thing from talking to Reina, too. In this world, I had no friends. I was all alone. Keiichi never transferred to our club. We didn't have a club, and Sadako had no connection to me. So maybe it was only natural. At that point, I finally realized why Reina had sympathized with me going home alone, and done her going home club activities with me.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Huh? Oh, I see.
For a moment I was confused when she said goodbye, since we were in front of the temple, but I quickly understood. We were in front of the Furude main house. Since Takano never appeared, there was no Irie Institute, nor any research in the Hinamizawa syndrome, and so my parents never died. At first my parents cooperated with the researchers, but when I fell ill with a high fever one day, they stopped cooperating, and had some kind of trouble and were assassinated. My mother was the hysterical type. When she made a fuss, settling her down took a while, and because she made a fuss, the Irie Institute, which wanted to do its research in secret, naturally made sure that she didn't talk. She held such an attitude even knowing how shady the Institute was, so in a sense I couldn't deny that she reaped what she sowed. In any case, no matter how many times I did this over, no matter how many times I warned her, it never worked. I resigned myself to the fact that I no longer had parents by 1981, and I repeated it many times. I'd seen my parents for dozens of years in total, so I was fed up with them. We weren't on good terms to begin with anyway. And now, in June of 1983, they were here again.
I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye! Goodbye, Nipa.
After seeing Reina off, I looked at my real home. I saw my mother patting out a dried futon in the yard. In normal worlds, they would always die, but in this one, they were alive the whole time. I found myself unsure of how to talk to my real mother. Okay, let me pause before this. I don't understand how they were spelling Okinomiya consistently, but then suddenly here it's not consistent. I don't know what's happening. Yes, I have to be petty again and mention that detail, because I am like that. It's just too weird to me. Maybe, never mind. Anyway. Is that you, Rika? Welcome home.
Me, I'm home.
Go wash your hands and rinse out your mouth, and get your books ready for tomorrow. Did you get any homework? Yes, she was my mother, all right. Honestly speaking, I wasn't used to the Furude main house. It was my true home, but it had only ever been my home before 1983, like a prison of time while I waited in melancholy for the day Keiichi transferred here. but Keiichi wouldn't transfer here, and my parents wouldn't die, which meant in this world I would never get out of this prison. But maybe that was a weird way to think about it. Without a dead-end fate, there was no victory or defeat, no destiny or miracles. This was my actual home. It was nothing more and nothing less. I went to my room and put down my book bag and took a breath. Usually when I was by myself, Hanyu would appear, but in this world she hadn't shown up. How long are you planning on wasting time? Hurry up and appear and take me back to my original world. I knew by now this world was odd and filled with what-ifs. I had it up to here with my exploration of this alternate universe. Fuck this AU, I agree. I prefer everything where they took forever to become happy. But Hanyu didn't appear. Oh, that's right. Hanyu was here by herself in the ritual storehouse a lot. Maybe she was here right now. In any case, whatever else happened, I just wanted to see Hanyu. I put on my shoes and ran out toward the shrine. As I turned my back on my annoying mother who called out at me, asking if I really rinsed out my mouth. In a world where my father was alive, it was hard to get the key to the storehouse. But thanks to the innumerable worlds I've been through, I found a way to get into the storehouse without it. I could hear the elders having a pleasant talk in the assembly hall. My father's laugh mixed in theirs. My father hated me going near the ritual storehouse. Well, considering what it stored, I could sort of understand why he wouldn't want to let his beloved daughter inside it. After making sure nobody was looking, I climbed a tree growing behind the storehouse. My climb didn't go as smoothly as when Sadako had shown me she could do it. In any case, I crawled up stubbornly and jumped down onto the storehouse roof. I was a little scared of jumping. I climbed pretty high off the ground. Even a centenarian witch can't escape the danger of heights. I tried. If I recalled right, there was a broken lattice window on the roof. You could get in and out through there. This world was betraying all my expectations and giving me the exact opposite. I considered that maybe you couldn't go in and out of it through it anymore. But in the place Sadako once told me about, it was broken just like she said, and a child would be able to fit inside. Even trivial things like this were a relief. Maybe the sun setting in the west should be a relief for me right now, because in this world would always set in the east. Yes, this discomfort I felt at having to doubt everything made me feel dizzy and sick. Hanyu! Hanyu! Are you there? No answer. I was too afraid to call out again, because maybe if I did and I still didn't get my answer. For me personally, Hanyu not existing in this world was one dice roll that couldn't happen. Hanyu! Hanyu! Then I felt something I couldn't describe. The presence of someone, but not a person. Something that only I could perceive, the presence of Hanyu. But Hanyu always answered me when I called for her. She wasn't now. What did that mean? But she was here. She was! I couldn't help poking my head through the roof. I climbed down the bundle of hanging chains and entered. Hanyu! Hanyu! Where are you? Answer me!
Rika! Rika! Where are you?
This time I heard her for sure. There was no doubt. Hanyu! I'm right here! Where are you? I can't see you at all!
Rika! Rika! Answer me!
Hanyu's feeble words implied she was actually the one who couldn't hear my voice. I looked for a place where I could hear her better. Before I realized it, I went to the altar in front of the holy vessel. Something that looked like a small crystal ball was on the altar. I sensed it giving off a faint light. That was where Hanyu's voice seemed to be coming from. The ball was about the size of a large toy marble, but it was seated respectfully on a small cushion, which told me it was no ordinary stone. I took the crystal ball in my hand and pressed it to my ear.
Rika, if you can hear me, please answer again. Rika! Rika!
There was no doubt. I was hearing Hanyu's voice from this crystal ball. It sounded like she was searching for me, growing more distant all the while. Hanyu! I can hear you! It's me, Rika! I'm right here!
Rika! Rika! I can hear your voice. Where are you? I can't find you. Your voice is so distant, I don't understand. Please call louder.
I'm here! I'm right here! Why can I hear your voice from this crystal ball? Wait, no, that's not important. I'm here right now, right in front of the altar in the storehouse. Hanyu! Hanyu!
I can hear your voice. I'm searching for you now. Please don't let go of the fragment. Keep on calling my name. Louder.
I'm here! Hanyu! Come! Hurry! Hanyu! Hanyu! For a while I kept shouting her name as if I'd gone mad. It was like clinging to a tin can telephone right before the string snapped. If Hanyu's voice caught up in the middle, if she left me behind alone in the darkness of the storehouse, I was scarier than anything else I could imagine. So she told me to. I shouted her name over and over again. Hanyu had to be searching for me by silently listening to my voice. I didn't know what her situation was, but it seemed Hanyu and I were far away from one another and that we were immeasurably distant. As the crystal ball's light strengthened, I knew she was coming closer. At first the light I sensed from it had been faint, but now it was bright as a weak miniature light bulb. I could clearly see it was shining.
Rika, what's going on? I can't enter the world you're in!
What? What are you saying? I'm the one who needs help here. I don't care how. Just come here. Take me out of this world!
Rika, listen carefully, please. For some reason your world rejects me. This should be impossible.
Given that she's both a paranormal existence and a deity, I couldn't imagine any situation that would make her anxious enough for her to weakly say this is impossible. All I could do was keep on wailing half insanely for her to do something. Anything.
But I can't do anything. This is the first time. This is impossible.
Stop acting so miserable and hurry up and do something already. Anything.
I can't, Rika. The world is giving off a power that rejects me. If you don't do something about that, there's nothing I can do.
Stop saying things that don't make sense. What do you mean a power that rejects you? You're a deity. That can't be.
You're right. It can't be, but there's no fragment on this side, so I can't line up the pieces. I don't know how, but the fragment is lost somewhere in your world.
Fragment? What do you mean? Explain it so I understand. I'll do anything I can. Continuing to act so deranged won't help with anything. I managed to figure out what Hanyu wanted to say, and now I knew I had to eliminate the obstacle. The situation utterly escaped me, but it seemed like if I didn't do something, Hanyu wouldn't appear in front of me.
I'm sorry for losing my composure.
I'll calm down now, so please explain again, please. What on earth is going on?
Rika, I don't know why, but part of the fragment, which should be in the world of God, seems to be lost in the world you're in right now. As an analogy, it's like a key you need to unlock a door being locked inside that room.
What's a fragment?
What appears as the world to you is called a fragment in the higher dimensions. We've been connecting those fragments like a jigsaw puzzle to walk between worlds.
I see. I think I understand the analogy. The world I'm in now is a fragment, a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, but something happened to the world that connects it to the rest, and it won't fit in with the pieces around it, right?
That's right. That missing piece always has to be on this side, but now, for some reason, it's on that side instead.
The fragments should be in this world of the gods, but for some reason, it fell into the human world, and now it's missing.
That's about right.
Alright, I just have to do something about that fragment, right? I'll do what you say. Where is that fragment? And what should I do with it? Is this really the time to be owling? Where is that fragment thing, and what does it look like?
I don't know.
What? How am I supposed to search for it if you don't know?
I don't understand either. From here I can only hear your voice. I can't interfere at all with that world as I am now.
But if it's called a fragment, then will it look like a glowing piece of crystal like this?
I think that's probably right. But I can't even imagine what shape it would take if something that belonged in the higher dimensions ended up in the human world.
I felt all my energy drain out of me, and I heaved a sigh. We don't even know what it looks like. This is the worst. Anyway, if I do find it, what would I do? How would I get it back into the world of the gods? You don't even know that?
I'm sorry. It's the first time this has happened. I don't really know either.
I laughed mostly at myself, and before I realized it, I couldn't stop my tears from falling. After getting sent into this crazy world, I don't even know how to get back. Today of all days! I was in such high spirits going to the pool with my friends. That tiny fragment of happy days we all finally obtained after escaping the dead-end June of 1983. And just because I was messing around on the way back just a little, I got sent to this horrible world. But if I'm going to complain about that, and it's my own fault for not being careful on the road, isn't it? I lost my balance on my bicycle and got thrown off and then fell into the car there. A common traffic accident. A common death of a child. It just happened to be me this time. The future I won after over 100 years, and not just because of that everything was in pieces. I could wail all I want, but the only thing at fault was my own carelessness. In fact, I should be thankful to Hanyu for letting me live. But sending me to a world like this, it's too cruel. No, it wasn't as though Hanyu sent me here because she wanted to. I know that.
It's like you remember, Rika. Our power's been wearing away, and with the last of that power, we reached our victory. So we were never supposed to be able to use it again.
You mean you used that power to save me?
Yes. There was nothing else I could do. Rika, your body flew off the bike, and if that dice had come up better, you might have fallen on the car and made it out injured but alive, but you were unlucky, and when you flew off, you landed right in front of the car's tires.
From Hanyu's words colored with sadness, it felt like she watched me fly off and get run over by the car and die.
Everyone had their mouths wide open, in a daze. The car's brakes screeched as it crashed into the guardrail, but nobody was listening, and then Sadako, she ran over to you, but you looked, your face was gone.
The car crushed my head flat. She was always talking about this, wasn't she? Never to play in the road. I could imagine the rest of the story without Hanyu telling me. That fun day we had was wiped out in an instant by my careless fooling around. We drove together into the longest June 19th, 1983 of these past 100 years, and the peaceful future we finally reached through the sharing of countless miracles was wiped out in an instant. My corpse was too horrible to look at. Sako came over running first. Everyone else came. They all wished they woke up from that nightmare, until they lost all hope, broke down and wept. Compared to that heart-splitting sadness, the one who was actually careless, grumbling about, wanting to go home since this world was uncomfortable, counted for nothing. Did that mean, in the end, it was all my own fault? I struggled through so many years to reach that future. I carelessly lost it by nobody's fault but my own. And I was blessed since Hanyu was here for me, so I should be thankful, because if that happened to someone other than me, they'd just lose their life and nothing more. Just the fact that there was hope, even if it was only a single tiny ray, surely meant I was fortunate. Thanks. Idiots die from accidents and carelessness all the time in Japan, and I was one of them. I should have just died without complaints. But thanks to you, even though things have gone strange, I'm alive. And I'm sure it'll be really, really hard. But there's still a way to return to that world. Let's review. To bring me back to the original world, Hanyu, you need to come here, right?
Yes, of course. I want to return to the original world with you, Rika.
Naturally. We won that world after over 100 years of struggle. We're going back. I would spend another 100 years to do it. I won't lose. I won't lose heart. Just for fooling around a little on the road. And that sentence. Another 100 years. That won't make me cry.
Rika, even in the world beyond, everyone is praying for you. They're praying that, even if it costs them their lives, you turn back time and make it so the accident never happened. I think those prayers were why I was able to find you, Rika.
In this storehouse in which I could only smell dust, I thought I caught the scent of incense. I couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but somehow I knew. It was my funeral, and I thought I could hear them. My friends heartbroken grieving over my coffin. Their cries were incredibly sad, so painful, as though it would tear me apart. I understood my carelessness. It had destroyed not only my life, but everyone else's happiness. I'll go back. I'm going back. I'll return to that world no matter what. No matter how narrow the path may be, I'll do it. I'll go back for sure. My tears filled with sadness, mixed with determination, mixed with saltiness, dropped to the floor.
Rika, being locked in that world is the same as the dead end of 1983. It may look like an inescapable fate, but you can absolutely escape it.
I know. Heichi taught me that. Even Takano taught me too. Fate was thinner than a goldfish scooping net, and strong enough feelings can reshape the future.
That's right, Rika. That's the spirit. Maybe it was because of your carelessness, but you've been given the chance to atone for it and make it go away. That's a really, really lucky thing.
I know. Normal people would be starting over in their next lives, but I alone got one last chance. I know what that means.
Rika, I want you to somehow find the fragment rejecting me. I'll see if I can figure anything out in this world.
I'll have to make do without any hints. Also, and as long as you're not in this world, if I die here, that's the end, right?
Yes. My power doesn't affect that world right now. So please, Rika, be really careful.
I know. I'll never fool around the road again.
We don't have any hints, but I'm this village's guardian, Didi, and this village is all I've ever watched over. If this power can interfere with me, then I think this power must be in this village too.
Somewhere in this village. If it has anything to do with you, to be honest, I think it'd be in this ritual implement storehouse.
Rika, is there anything in the storehouse that isn't in the usual world?
I don't know. I can't tell right away. There's no proof that it would be so obvious, right?
If it's enough to interfere with me, Rika, you stepped into places incredibly close to the world of the gods before, so you might be able to sense it.
Another thing to worry about. I don't think anything on this altar, including this crystal ball, has changed at least, but this is a strange crystal ball. It's interesting for how a mere marvel. It's on display in such an important place.
Right now you're holding the Furude Shrine treasure, the Kamu no Mikoto no Ri. Long ago, when I performed a miracle at the Furude Shrine, I left it here as proof. After such a long time, most of the power inside of it's gone, but luckily for us, it's the only source of power I have that affects you. If it had more power, or if I could prevail against this, I might have been able to go into the world that you're in.
Which means I'll only be able to talk to you with this crystal ball for a limited time.
Yes. Rika, can you hear my voice? From here, your voice sounds like it's slowly fading away.
I get it. It's like a transceiver about to run out of battery power. Alright, I won't contact you unless it's important. That way we can talk for a little bit longer, right?
Probably.
Then that's enough. I'll rummage around the storehouse now. It could be hidden anywhere if it's the same size as this crystal ball. It might not be in the storehouse either. I'm going to need perseverance for this job.
Rika, please do your best. All I can do is stay here and cheer for you, and even if the words I can use for that are limited now.
It's fine. Mark my words. I'll open the door to this world and invite you in. I promise we'll go back to that fun world together. So you do your best too. If you learn anything that could be a clue, tell me.
I will.
And that's it. I'm going to stop talking now. See you again, Hanyu. I promise. Once we get back to the last world, I'll fill the refrigerator with cream puffs for you.
I'll look forward to that promise.
Hanyu's voice gently vanished, like water seeping into sand. But that didn't mean Hanyu had vanished. It was kind of like I was talking to Hanyu on a public phone, and my 10 yen ran out. We might have been in different worlds, but we were cooperating, trying to get out of this world and back to the last one. When I thought about it, Hanyu had always been an ally in my life. In this world, that ally was gone. Maybe that was a fitting punishment for wasting my time by being careless. To get back to the last world, I would pile up as many stones as I needed to. For these were the banks of the river Styx, nirvana from my viewpoint, as one who had lost her life in the previous world. But I'll get back. I swear I'll get back there. Then suddenly the inside of the storehouse brightened. Someone had just turned on the switch for the naked bulb hanging from the ceiling, and then with a heavy clank the door opened. My father appeared there. His face was like a demon's. Ah, that's right. I entered the cordoned-off ritual implement storehouse. I only received the right to enter the storehouse when I succeeded them as the head of the Furude family. In other words, the world with my parents alive. I wasn't allowed to come in here. Rika! How did you get in here? How many times have I told you to never enter the storehouse? My father was in a rage. Thanks to the property imprinted into one's very genes that made children tremble when their father looks at them with a scary face, I reflexively cringe with fear. He grabbed me to the back of my neck and took me outside. I ended up being disciplined, something I'd forgotten for a very long time. My parents being here is such a bother. Just when I thought I'd been lucky that they made it through the year 1981, they're getting in the way of me returning to the final world. In the storehouse, I'd been shouting Hanyu's name pretty loudly, so he probably noticed. I would investigate the storehouse for real tomorrow, but I have to take extreme caution so that my father didn't find me. In the middle of the night, unable to sleep face up on my futon because my rear end swelled from all the spanking, I bit my pillow and cried again, and thought back over what I had to do. This was my room. This was my futon. But this wasn't where I was supposed to sleep. The futon I was supposed to go home to was in a small house on the second floor of the renovated warehouse, the one next to Sadako's. But in this world, the youth group was probably still using it as a meeting place. So my futon obviously wouldn't be there. Then what futon was I supposed to use in this world? Punishment for doing something stupid and careless, bringing the future we all won to nothing. I needed to find what was keeping Hanyu away so I could call her here. It would take a lot of effort for that reason. I needed to build up my energy and get some sleep. Shedding tears was nothing but a waste of time and stamina. I knew that, but I fell asleep and wept into my pillow. I hate this fragment. It sucks. I hate it too. I still don't like Saikoroshi. Okay. I'm just gonna save now. And we're gonna be done for tonight. Okay.